Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Really sorry for the delay. I just got out of the Oval Office with the President, who wanted me to relay a few new messages to you all on Hurricane Beryl. This is important to him, and he knows it's important to the people of Texas, so he wanted to make sure that before I came out here, I had all of this information. So, the President spoke with Houston Mayor Whitmire and Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo about the impacts of Hurricane Beryl, and they both asked for help from the federal government. Because of the governor of Texas is currently out of the country, the president then called the lieutenant governor of Texas to ensure that Texans are getting the resources they need and deserve following this devastating storm. On the call, the president raised the need for a major disaster declaration and immediately approved it while on the call when the lieutenant governor requested it. With this major disaster declaration in place, we will be able to provide life-saving and life-sustaining activities. The president and his team have been working around the clock for the past 2 days to ensure Texas has the resources and tools needed to respond to Beryl and keep Americans safe. Officials from the U.S. Coast Guard and FEMA have been on the ground, and senior White House officials have been in constant contact with their counterparts. While the storm has passed, our greatest concern right now is power outages and extreme heat. So we want to encourage residents to remain vigilant as temperatures rise, especially older adults and those with underlying health conditions. Fortunately, 800,000 have had power restored overnight, and we expect another 1 million to have their power restored today. The federal government has also offered generators to help reduce the impact of the power outages. The president continues to take decisive action to help the people of Texas recover, and he looks forward to working with the state to get more critical resources to the people that need them. I also want to share one additional scheduling item with all of you as well at the top. In addition to many NATO meetings we announced yesterday, on Thursday afternoon, President Biden will meet with President Zelensky of Ukraine to discuss our unwavering support for Ukraine as it continues to defend itself from Russian aggression. That meeting will be at 1:30 p.m. at the Convention Center, which, as you all know, is where the NATO sessions are being held, and it will take place just before the NATO-Ukraine Council meeting. This will be the third meeting between both presidents in recent weeks, following their sit-down in France and also a sit-down at the G7 in Italy, and it will further demonstrate the strength of the partnership between our countries. And finally, just a personal note here, I want to say a few words about Sam Michel here, who served as acting deputy press secretary for the good part of this year. We are sad that today is indeed his last day, but we are so grateful for his service, and he has been an incredible colleague. We were lucky to have him on our team, on our press team. His sharpness, his ability to stay calm under pressure, and his strategic thinking has been a real asset to us all. Sam, you will be greatly missed. Thank you so much for being on the team and stepping in when we really needed you. Okay, all right, Sung Ming.
Plans to talk with leadership again soon?
I don't have any calls. We don't have calls to read out or to preview. He is going to continue to engage. I just don't have anything right now to share at this moment. He talked to CBC, again, the Congressional Black Caucus members yesterday. They had a very, very good call, and so he's going to continue to engage. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. The White House is obviously fielded
re-election.
First of all, it's a hypothetical, right? That you're giving me a hypothetical. But I will also say, just to clear this up, the White House medical unit, his doctor, they don't believe that he needs anything more than what we have been able to provide. A full, detailed, very comprehensive physical that he had 4 months ago. It is their decision to make. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's the White House medical unit. Okay.
Hi, Karine. You mentioned that the Democratic Party was united, perhaps the leadership, but a lot of rank-and-file Democrats have a lot of concerns. One of them, Steve Cohen, said today, not only are they not on the same page, but they're not even in the same book. How does is the White House concerned about that?
Look, I've said before, right, we respect congressional members. They have their opinions. We respect their opinions, many of them that we had opportunities to deliver really good results on behalf of the American people. But there is the whole Congressional Black Caucus. They support the president. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus support the president. Those are pretty impressive numbers. Senator Coons, Senator Fetterman support the president. There's also another list here that shows support for this president. You're going to have some congressional members who feel differently. That is up to them, right? The president wants to continue. He's going to have those conversations. He's going to engage with congressional members. He's going to continue to do that as he has. That's not going to stop. Obviously, the campaign is doing their work. We're continuing our engagement with congressional members as we do pretty much all the time on whatever issue we want to work with them on. So that's not going to change. You heard from AOC, the Congresswoman from New York. She said, the matter is closed and I support him, right? You heard from Maxwell Frost, who was on CNN today, was very supportive on CNN. So you do have others out there, just today or yesterday, giving support to the president. I can't, you're mentioning one person, but there are others as well.
Karine,
Yeah.
On a separate topic
Sure.
slightly, Cedric Richmond this morning, he said that the debate stage was words, the debate stage was performance. I would say look at actions and accomplishments. President's allies have made some version of that argument to not pay attention to what he said on stage, but what his accomplishments are. But when you're the president of the United States, don't words matter?
So when you're the president of the United States, I think any leader, right, especially including a former president, your words do matter. You're 100% correct. The president has owned up to that night. He said it was a bad night. He said this many times. He's even said he screwed up. So those are the president's words. That's all I can give you at this time. We do believe that we should not just look at the 90 minutes. The president has done more than any other modern day presidents, administrations. Historic things have gotten done. When I was watching the Democratic caucus, they talked about $35 insulin, right? Capping that. When you think about seniors who are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars, we were able to get that done because of a very important piece of legislation that we moved through, right? And only Democrats made that happen. That's also because of the leadership of this president. And that's just one. That's a bipartisan infrastructure legislation. There's the CHIPS and Science Act. There's the PACT Act for our veterans. I mean, there are things that he's been able to do that elected officials, presidents before him have been trying to do and could not get done, beating Big Pharma. So there is a long list of impressive things that this president has been able to get done, getting us out of the pandemic, that we do believe is important to note here as well as an accomplishment of this presidency.
Another question that I don't think has been asked, correct me if it has. The White House and also the campaign has said that he had a cold that night. He then went to a watch party afterwards, which you have brought up. I was at that watch party. If he did have a cold, why then push him to another event where he spent some 45 minutes along the rope line?
I mean, and not just and I would add to that, it wasn't just a watch party. We landed at 2 a.m. in the morning in North Carolina. He greeted hundreds of North Carolinians in North Carolina. He woke up the next day in North Carolina, gave a speech in front of thousands of North Carolinians. No. I'm just trying to you gave me an opportunity, and I'm just using that opportunity, obviously, to lay out what the president did in those 2.5 days. Look, one of the reasons that we shared that he had a cold is because during the debate in real time, everybody heard his hoarse voice, and folks asked, and we were able to confirm right away that he had a cold, and that he was also tested negative for COVID. So we were able to share that in real time. So just also want to share that. Look, he pushed forward, right? Many of us have colds, and we still push forward. He's the president of the United States. He understands how important it is to continue to get up every morning, regardless of how you feel, right, to get things done. That's how this president is. I'm sure that's how many presidents before him were as well, when it comes to really not letting a cold get you down. And I think that's also why he pushed forward in the debate also on that night. So, look, he pushed forward, tried to get things done, wanted to make sure that he had an opportunity. People who watched him do a debate, who were waiting for him, people at 2 o'clock in the morning in North Carolina who were waiting for him, he wanted to make sure that he engaged with Americans.
And finally, Karine, this morning House Speaker Mike Johnson said, as he has before, that Democrats have been covering up the president's mental acuity for years. How do you respond to that, and has the White House misled Americans?
So I'll say this, Americans out there, folks who are watching, who are not normally in the day-to-day of what's happening in this world, there is a comprehensive full comprehensive medical report on the website, whitehouse.gov. I would encourage them to take a look, Read that report, and they can also read for themselves what his specialist, a group of specialists coming out of the medical unit decided on, what they examined, what they saw, what they reported on. I think that matters as well. It is a group of them that come together when it comes to doing their physical. It is extensive physical. And so there is something there for them. It's transparent, it's out there, it's for them to read, it's for the American, not just for you, for the American people to take a look. And I think that's important to note as well, and that's what I would share with them. Okay, and I'll come to you, Ed, in a second. Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. The president said yesterday in his letter, in his interview, that he talked to a wide range of voters. He overwhelmingly heard from people that they wanted him to stay in the race. Our polling shows that 76% of Democrats think he is too old to run this year. How is he coming to this conclusion? Are you sure that a handful of events is giving him a representative view of swing state voters?
So look, that has been, you all have asked me about polling and his age for, I feel like a year now. It's come up many, many times. And, I'm not going to speak to polls. It's not something I'm going to do from here. I'm just going to let the experts, the pundits, and all of you.
He's saying he's conducting his
No,
own poll
wait.
effectively,
I
isn't he?
was about to answer a question. Just give me a second. Look, for the past 3.5 years, the president has been out there talking to voters. And if you think about, what he was referring to when he went to Atlanta right after the watch party, he literally did a rope line. Some of your colleagues were there. Some of your colleagues spoke to some of the folks who were there and heard from them directly. He heard from folks at the rope line. These are everyday, engaging with everyday people. That's what he did. Landed at 2 a.m. in the morning in North Carolina, hundreds of people there. He did a rope line, engaged with everyday people. The next day, thousands of people were at the North Carolina event, and you heard chants, "Let's go, Joe. We love you, Joe." That's something that you feel, right? That's something that you feel out there, and that's what he feels out there. The next day, he went to New York, and he was able to speak to some supporters there, and then went to New Jersey. So it is a continuation. On Sunday, 600 people at the church. If you watch that service, you heard from that congregation. If you watched him in Harrisburg, you saw him engaging with people. There's nothing that takes away, all respect to the polling out there, but nothing takes away, I don't think, from engaging with everyday Americans. I think that matters too. And I'm just laying out the last 10 or 12 days, right? That's just the last 10 or 12 days.
One more. Over the weekend, the New York Times reported on a senior White House official who apparently had worked with the president in his vice presidency in the 2020 campaign, said he shouldn't seek re-election. They thought he was not up to it and was showing signs of his age. Does the White House know who this person is or made any effort to find out? And are you comfortable having someone who apparently is traveling with him and working with him in this way who thinks this?
Look, that is the first time I've ever heard that was in that reporting. This is not the last administration where we try to find who is speaking or leaking. That's not something that we do here. Everybody has their opinion, but that is the first time I've ever heard anything like that. I've never heard anyone speak in that way from here. Get it.
To follow up on something you were saying again about congressional outreach, has the president spoken to, does he plan to speak with any of those that have publicly called for him to go?
Look, I don't have a list of people that the president's going to call. He's going to engage with congressional members. That's something that he's going to do. I can say, you know, I'm sure folks here in his Office of Leg Affairs has had regular communication with everyone. I just don't have a list of who he's going to speak to. But the president is always willing to speak to people who agree with him and don't agree with him. You know that about him. If you've covered him, he's very much that type of president. I just don't want to get ahead of his decision on who he's going to call and how that's going to look.
One thing I don't think we've gotten public clarification about yet. In the interview Friday night, he was asked, "Did you watch the debate?" And he said, "I don't think I did. No." Did he watch the full debate, or what of it has he watched?
You know, that's a good question. Never followed up with him, and I meant to. I have not asked him that question. I was there in the room when he was being asked that question. I just never followed up. You know, that is something that, you know, we could follow up with him on. I have not.
Okay.
I'm sure he's seen clips. I just haven't, asked him that full
Hard to
question.
avoid them, so I couldn't- yeah. One other thing that's come
Yeah,
up just
we believe, as I just stated here, it is our duty. It is our duty here as a U.S. government to share that. Okay.
I have a question about the NATO summit.
Sure.
There has been a lot of discussion about Ukraine, but also the southern flank of NATO, countries like Italy and Spain. They want the summit to approve a new strategy to improve relations with countries in North Africa, the Middle East, and work together in challenges like migration or instability. So does the U.S. support this, and is the president trying to or planning to meet with any leaders of the southern flank?
And so we also believe India's longstanding relationship with Russia gives it the ability to urge the President Putin, to end his brutal war, an unprovoked war in Ukraine. It is for President Putin to end. President Putin started the war, and President Putin can end the war. Okay.
Thank you, Karine. A couple questions on unrelated subjects. First, there's been some reporting by my colleagues in the British press that His Majesty King Charles would like to visit his grandchildren in California and could do so in conjunction with a state visit. Has there been any discussion, or will there be any discussion between President Biden and Prime Minister Starmer about such a visit?
So I don't have anything to share. That is something, obviously, that the State Department and NSC would certainly engage on if that were to be the case. As you know, the new Prime Minister will be here for the NATO alliance. I just mentioned that there will be a bilat between President Biden and the new Prime Minister, so the President looks forward to that. An upcoming visit that involves the King Charles. I don't have anything to share at this time.
Okay, next question. The President yesterday on Morning Joe said he wanted to make sure that the average voter out there still wants Joe Biden to be running for president. And you've rattled off a long list of campaigning engagements that he's had over the last 10 or so days since the debate. Those engagements, whenever the president travels, whether it's part of the campaign or official travel, there are advance teams. People who get near him are screened either by the Secret Service or the campaign or both. So how are these groups of people he's meeting with supporters of his? They are supporters. They get to these official events, these official campaign events. They are known to be supporters of the campaign. They self-select by coming to his events. How are groups of people that come to his events, make the time out of their day to do that, and are vetted by the campaign and allowed into these events, representative of the average voter? And I have one more.
So look, I'm going to be really careful because you're asking me a political question. You would have to talk to the campaign on how the process works, right? No, wait. Give me a second. On how that process works, on who's at these campaign events. So I just want to make that clear, because I have to say that from here and make that clear. I would remind you that 14 million people, this is something that I can talk about, voted for the president in the primary. That's 87% of the vote. That matters. Those numbers matter. And So that is kind of a reality, a data point that matters as well. And so I'll just leave it there. But I think it does matter. I hear the question that you're asking. He's still engaging with everyday people. He's still hearing directly from them. They're still sharing information, sharing how they feel, sharing how they see the future of his presidency, and I think that matters as well. As far as who's in the room, how that comes together, who's in front of him, you would have to speak to the campaign about that.
Last thing, you've described his engagements with Dr. O'Connor on a regular basis as check-ins. That's what you've described him having after the debate, a check-in versus an exam. Can you elaborate on what the difference is between a check-in and an exam? At these check-ins, does Dr. O'Connor or another staff member take the president's vitals or anything like that?
So I've talked about this on Friday. They're verbal check-ins with the president. They check in. As the president's exercising, that's usually how this happens. And they're not a medical exam. I've said this already. I've cleared that up. It's not a physical. It is a verbal check-in that the president does multiple times with his doctor. It's normally as he's working out.
Does anyone from the medical unit take the president's vitals on a regular basis?
What I can tell you is he gets regular check-ins. He does regular check-ins a couple times a week with Dr. O'Connor, and that is for his doctor to decide on. That is not something that I can speak to from here. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. The president's come out very aggressively in the past 24 hours, from that letter to Democrats, the call into MSNBC, the phone call with donors, the CDC last night. Was that his decision personally to step up that outreach?
It has been. He's ready. He's on fire. He's ready to go, and he wants to get out there and continue to show that he has more work to do. Right? He has more important issues for the American people to get done, and so he wants to get out there. He's always has, though. I mean, the last 2.5 years, 3 years, 3.5 years, he looks forward to getting out there, speaking directly to the American people. And I know we say this, and I know sometimes you guys don't believe us, but he does want to engage with you all. He does want to talk more to the press. And so now we're certainly going to continue to create opportunities to do that. He's done interviews 47 times in this year alone, and we're going to continue to create opportunities to do this. We're going to get out there so he can engage with the American people more directly. So we're going to continue to do that.
But in terms of, especially in the last 24 hours, that type of outreach to ease concerns among Democrats about his campaign continuing, was there something specific that he heard or read that prompted this, would seem more like a flurry over the last 24 hours, that didn't happen last week? We really saw him doing more.
I get it.
Yesterday.
No, I get the question. Look, I wouldn't say there's anything specific. This is something that he wanted to do. And if you think about it, he's been on the road a lot since the debate. He was on the road on Friday. He was on the road on Sunday, and then right out of the debate, right, he did about 2.5 days of going into about 4 states. So he's just been on the road, busy, engaging with Americans. And he did the ABC interview, as you know, obviously. And so he wants to do more. He wants to do more. There's nothing specific, but he understands. He understands what you all saw, right? He understands he had a bad debate. He understands that what Americans saw. So he wants to go out there and continue to prove to all of you that he can continue to do the work and the
Do you
job.
feel that outreach is working to ease those concerns after the bad debate?
I mean, look, I think he's, this is kind of the questions that I got from other colleagues. He's hearing directly from the American people, and I think that matters. I think him being out there and Americans seeing him directly, being able to touch him and ask him questions and see him face to face, I think that matters. And so, look, we're going to continue to move forward and do what we have to do. All right, I think I can take one more. Go ahead, Aurea.
Thank you so much. We've seen the president like being on the ground more, but we've also heard a slightly new tone from him. He said he was frustrated with the elites of his party. He dismissed polls. He criticized media coverage, saying that journalists get election results wrong. So is this the kind of tone we should expect to hear from him going forward? And does he believe this is the kind of tone that the average voters, as he says, expect from him?
Look, I would say this. I think what we've seen the last 10 to 12 days is certainly fundamental to the Joe Biden story. He is someone that is certainly counted out many, many times in his career. People tend to knock him down, and you hear him say he gets back up. This is the story. This is the story of him standing up for himself, standing up for millions of Americans, and certainly millions of Americans who back his leadership. And like him, care. They care about working people. They care about getting things done. And it really truly is who he is at his core, to fight not just for himself, but what he believes in. And he has seen this over and over again. People count him out. People say he's not going to win. People say, all of the negative things that they want to put at his feet, and he proves them wrong. Over and over again. You think about 2020. Folks said the same thing. He's not going to win. He's not going to make it. And he won. In 2022, we had a midterm election. And going into that midterm election, it was supposed to be a red wave. There wasn't a red wave. Happened in 2023. Now we're in 2024. And he's going to continue to fight. That is his commitment. That is quintessential Joe Biden story. That is fundamentally who he is to continuing to fight. All right, thanks everybody.